Amelia Brooks stood in a dark convenience store parking lot, staring at $8 crumpled dollars in her hand. Her last $8, her daughter's breakfast money for tomorrow. Then she heard the sound. A man gasping for air. A massive outlaw rider's biker collapsed near his motorcycle, clutching his chest. His face went gray. He was dying right there on the pavement, and no one else was around to help. "Don't get involved," the convenience store clerk shouted from the doorway. "Those guys are nothing but trouble." Amelia looked at the dying man, then at her $8. She thought about her daughter Sophia waking up hungry tomorrow, but she couldn't just walk away. She ran inside, bought aspirin and water with her last $8 and knelt beside him. She saved his life without knowing who he was. What Amelia didn't know, that choice would change everything. Because the next morning, 100 motorcycles rolled up to her street. Let me take you back to the morning before that convenience store before everything changed. Amelia's alarm went off at 4:30 a.m., like it did every single day. She dragged herself out of bed in the tiny apartment she shared with her 6-year-old daughter, Sophia. The place was small, run down in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but it was home. She walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. One box of cereal, almost empty, half a carton of milk in the fridge. She poured the last bit into Sophia's bowl and made it stretch as far as it would go. Sophia came padding out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, Mommy. Morning, baby." Amelia kissed the top of her head and set the bowl on the table. She didn't make one for herself. There wasn't enough. This was life now. Counting every dollar, stretching every meal, praying that nothing unexpected happened because there was no cushion, no safety net, nothing to fall back on. Amelia worked 2 jobs, mornings at the dry cleaners, folding strangers' clothes for $11 an hour. Evenings at a cafe serving commuters, and late-night crowds hustling for tips that sometimes added up to $20, sometimes less. Her car had broken down 3 weeks ago. She couldn't afford to fix it. So now she walked everywhere, miles to work, miles home in worn-out sneakers with a hole in the left sole. And the bills kept coming. Rent was due in 3 days. She was $150 short. The landlord had already threatened eviction once. Sophia's asthma inhaler needed refilling. $60 she didn't have. The electricity bill had an overdue notice taped to the fridge. But Amelia didn't complain. She'd learned a long time ago that complaining didn't pay the bills. Her grandmother had raised her with one simple rule: kindness costs nothing, baby. And sometimes it's all we got to give. So Amelia smiled at her coworkers, even when she was exhausted. She asked customers how their day was going, even when her feet ached so bad she could barely stand. She kept a little journal by her bed, where she wrote 3 things she was grateful for every night, no matter how hard the day had been. That Wednesday started like every other day. She walked Sophia to the neighbor's apartment before school, then headed to the dry cleaners. She folded clothes for 8 hours, her mind on autopilot. Jeans, towels, sheets, over and over. At 2 p.m., she clocked out and walked to the cafe. Her shift didn't start until 3, but she liked to get there early, grab a coffee, sit in the back booth, and just breathe for a few minutes. Brenda, her co-worker, a kind, older woman who'd worked at the cafe for 20 years, slid into the booth across from her. "You look tired, honey." "I'm always tired," Amelia said with a small smile. "You worked yourself to death for that little girl." "She's worth it." Brenda patted her hand. "I know she is, but you got to take care of yourself too, you hear me?" Amelia nodded, but they both knew she didn't have that luxury. Her evening shift was busy. Commuters, a few families, some teenagers getting late-night fries. She smiled, took orders, refilled coffee cups, and kept moving. By 10:20 p.m., when her shift ended, her tips added up to $23. She sat in the back room counting the cash on the table. $23 in tips, plus the $8.47 she'd had left from yesterday. $31.47 total. She needed to keep enough for the bus to work tomorrow. $7. That left her with $31. She tucked $23 away for rent. That left $8 for Sophia's breakfast, and maybe something small for dinner tomorrow night. $8? She folded the bills carefully and put them in her pocket. Then she started the 2-mile walk home. It was late. The streets were quiet. Amelia was exhausted, but she kept her head up and kept moving. She decided to cut through the convenience store parking lot on her way. There was a restroom there, and she needed to stop. That's when everything changed. That's when she heard the man gasping for air. And in that moment, Amelia Brooks had a choice to make. A choice that would cost her everything she had. A choice that would save a life. A choice that would reveal who she really was when no one was watching. She had no idea that this one decision would change her life forever. Amelia pushed open the convenience store restroom door and stepped back outside into the parking lot. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered and buzzed. It was just past 11 p.m., and the place was almost empty. That's when she saw him. A man, massive, probably 6'3", with a thick gray beard and arms covered in tattoos, leaned against a chrome motorcycle under one of the lights. He wore a black leather vest with patches all over it. Outlaw Riders. Even from a distance, Amelia could see the skull logo. She'd heard stories about guys like him. Everyone had dangerous criminal. Stay away. She started walking toward the street, minding her own business. Then the man stumbled, his hand shot to his chest, his face twisted in pain. He dropped to one knee, gasping. Amelia stopped. The man collapsed onto the pavement, flat on his back. His breathing came in short, desperate bursts. His lips were turning blue. She stood there, frozen. Every instinct screamed at her to keep walking. This wasn't her problem. She had Sophia to think about. She had enough trouble in her own life. But then she heard it. A sound that made her blood run cold. The man wasn't breathing anymore. His chest had stopped moving. "Hey!" Amelia shouted toward the convenience store. "Hey, someone call 911. The clerk, a white guy in his 30s, stepped outside with a cigarette in his hand. He looked at the man on the ground, then at Amelia. "Lady, you crazy? That's an outlaw rider. Leave him alone. He's probably high on something." "No, he's having a heart attack," Amelia said, her voice rising. The clerk shrugged. "Not our problem. Those guys are nothing but trouble. Trust me, you don't want to get involved." An older man, maybe 60, white, wearing a trucker hat, walked out of the store with a bag of chips. He saw the scene and shook his head. He walked over to Amelia and grabbed her arm gently. "Miss, listen to me. Don't get involved. People like that, they're dangerous. You've got a kid to think about, don't you? I can tell. Just walk away." Amelia pulled her arm back. "A man is dying." The trucker shook his head again, muttered something under his breath, and walked to his car. He drove off without looking back. Amelia stood there alone in the parking lot. The clerk went back inside, leaving her with the dying man. She looked down at him. His chest wasn't moving. His face was gray. She thought about her grandmother. Years ago, her grandmother had collapsed on a city sidewalk. A stroke. People walked past her. No one stopped. By the time someone finally called for help, it was too late. Amelia had been 12 years old when she got that phone call. She'd never forgotten it. She dropped to her knees beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open just barely. He tried to speak, but only a wheeze came out. Heart meds. Forgot. Amelia pulled out her phone. 1 bar of signal, 10% battery. She dialed 911. The call dropped. "Damn it!" She stood up and ran toward the convenience store. She burst through the door. "Call an ambulance right now. He's dying out there." The clerk rolled his eyes, but picked up the phone behind the counter. Amelia didn't wait. She scanned the shelves, grabbed a bottle of aspirin and a bottle of water. She ran to the counter and slammed them down. How much? $6.50. She pulled the $8 from her pocket, Sophia's breakfast money, and handed it over. The clerk gave her $1.50 in change. She didn't wait for a receipt. She ran back outside. The man was still on the ground, barely conscious. Amelia twisted the cap off the aspirin bottle, shook 2 tablets into her hand, opened the water, and knelt beside him. Hey, look at me. I need you to chew these. Can you do that? He opened his mouth weakly. She placed the tablets on his tongue. Chew. Come on. He chewed slowly, wincing. She held the water bottle to his lips, and he took a small sip. Help is coming, she said, her hand on his shoulder. You're going to be okay. Just stay with me. His hand reached up and grabbed hers. His grip was weak, but it was there. What's your name? He whispered, his voice barely audible. Amelia Brooks. Amelia? He coughed. You saved my life. Not yet, but I'm trying. In the distance, sirens wailed. They were getting closer. Then, out of nowhere, another motorcycle roared into the parking lot. A younger guy, maybe 30, also wearing a vest, jumped off and ran over. Bear! Oh my God, Bear! He dropped to his knees on the other side of the man. He looked at Amelia, his eyes wide with shock. You helped him? He needed help, Amelia said simply. The younger guy stared at her like she'd just done something impossible. Most people cross the street when they see us. Amelia didn't respond. She just kept her hand on Bear's shoulder until the ambulance pulled into the lot. The paramedics rushed over with a stretcher and equipment. One of them looked at Amelia. Did you give him aspirin? Yes, 2 tablets maybe 3 minutes ago. The paramedic nodded. Smart move. You probably just saved his life. They loaded Bear onto the stretcher. He reached out and grabbed Amelia's wrist one more time, his eyes locked onto hers. Tell them Bear sent you. She had no idea what that meant. The younger guy stood up as the ambulance doors closed. He walked over to Amelia, pulled a business card from his wallet, and handed it to her. It was plain white with just a phone number and a small logo, a crown with wings. My name's Jax, he said. Bear's going to want to thank you. Please call this number tomorrow. Amelia took the card, her hands shaking. She looked at the logo, then back at Jax. Who is he? She asked. Jax smiled, but there was something heavy in his expression. Someone important. Someone who doesn't forget kindness. The ambulance pulled away, sirens blaring. The convenience store clerk stood in the doorway, arms crossed, shaking his head. Amelia stood alone in the parking lot with $1.50 in her pocket and no idea what she'd just done. She walked home in the dark, replaying everything. The clerk's words echoed in her mind. Those guys are nothing but trouble, but all she'd seen was a man who needed help. Had she made a mistake? She didn't know yet, but she was about to find out. The paramedics worked fast. One of them placed an oxygen mask over Bear's face while the other checked his vitals. Amelia stood back, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline. Jax paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. He looked terrified. Is he going to be okay? He asked the paramedics. We got him stable, one of them said. But if this lady hadn't given him aspirin when she did, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. Jax turned to Amelia. His eyes were red. You don't understand, Bear. He's not just anybody. He's everything to us. Amelia didn't know what to say. I just did what anyone would do. No. Jax shook his head firmly. Most people would have walked away, especially from someone who looks like him. The paramedics loaded Bear into the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, Bear pulled the oxygen mask down slightly and looked at Amelia. "Thank you," he mouthed. She nodded. The ambulance doors closed, and the vehicle pulled away into the night. Jack stood there for a moment, watching it disappear. Then he turned back to Amelia. "You got kids?" The question caught her off guard. "Yeah, a daughter, Sophia. She's 6. What's your situation? Are you working?" Amelia hesitated. She didn't know this man, but something about the way he asked, gentle, genuine, made her answer. "2 jobs. We're managing." Jax looked down at her shoes, the hole in the left sole, her worn jeans, the exhaustion written all over her face. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I bet." He pulled out his wallet. It was thick with cash. He started counting bills. "Let me give you something for the aspirin, for your time, for what you did." Amelia stepped back. "No, please." I said no. Her voice was firm. "I didn't do it for money." Jax stopped. He stared at her for a long moment. Then why? Because he needed help. "That's it." Jax slowly put his wallet away. He studied her face like he was trying to memorize it. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, the same one he'd shown her before. Plain white phone number, Crown with Wings logo. "Bear's going to want to thank you himself," Jax said. "Tomorrow afternoon, please call this number." Amelia took the card, planning to throw it away the moment she got home. "I'll think about it." "Please," Jax said again. There was something almost desperate in his voice. "Just call." "That's all I'm asking." She nodded, slipping the card into her pocket. Jax got on his motorcycle. Before he rode off, he looked back at her one more time. "You're a good person, Amelia Brooks. Don't ever let anyone tell you differently." Then he was gone. Amelia stood alone in the convenience store parking lot. The clerk had gone back inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Everything felt surreal, like she'd just stepped out of a dream. She started walking home. 2 miles in the dark, with $1.50 in her pocket. Her mind raced the entire way. What had just happened? Who was Bear? Why did Jax look at her like she'd done something extraordinary? All she'd done was help someone. But the way they reacted, it was like no one had ever helped them before. She thought about the clerk's warning. Those guys are nothing but trouble. She thought about the trucker who told her to walk away. Maybe they were right. Maybe she just made a huge mistake. Maybe tomorrow she'd wake up and regret everything. But she couldn't shake the image of Bear lying on that pavement, his chest not moving, his face turning gray. If she'd walked away, he'd be dead. That was the truth. And she didn't know how to regret saving someone's life. By the time she got home, it was nearly 1 a.m. Her neighbor, Mrs. Hayes, an older woman who watched Sophia when Amelia worked late, was asleep on the couch with Sophia curled up beside her. Amelia gently shook Mrs. Hayes awake. "I'm home. Thank you so much." Mrs. Hayes nodded groggy and shuffled out. Amelia carefully lifted Sophia and carried her to bed. Sophia stirred slightly. "Mommy?" "Shh, go back to sleep, baby. I love you, Mommy. I love you too." Amelia tucked the blanket around her daughter and kissed her forehead. Then she walked back to the kitchen and sat down at the small table. She pulled the business card out of her pocket and stared at it. The Crown with Wings logo glinted under the dim overhead light. She turned it over. Nothing on the back, just a phone number. Who were these people? She looked at the $1.50 sitting on the table. Tomorrow, Sophia would wake up and ask for breakfast, and Amelia would have to tell her they'd have crackers and the last banana, nothing else, because she'd spent her last $8 on a stranger. She pulled out her journal, a small notebook she kept by the window. Every night, no matter how hard things were, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. It was something her grandmother had taught her. She opened to a blank page and wrote, 1. Sophia is healthy. 2. I helped someone tonight. 3. Tomorrow is a new day. She closed the journal and looked at the business card again. She set it on the nightstand beside her bed. Then she lay down, exhausted, and closed her eyes. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. She had no idea that across town in a hospital room, Bear was telling Jax to gather everyone. She had no idea that her name was being spoken in rooms she'd never seen by people she'd never met. She had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. All she knew was that she'd done the right thing. And sometimes that's all you can do, even when it costs you everything. Amelia's alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Just like always, she dragged herself out of bed, her body aching from the long day before. She walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. 1 banana, a handful of crackers, that was it. She split the banana in half, arranged the crackers on a plate, and poured a glass of water. Sophia came padding out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, Mommy. What's for breakfast?" "A special breakfast today, baby." Amelia forced a smile. "Banana and crackers, your favorite." Sophia didn't complain. She never did. She climbed into her chair and started eating. Amelia didn't make anything for herself. There wasn't enough. She sat across from Sophia, watching her eat, trying not to think about how empty the cabinets were. Trying not to think about the $8 she'd spent last night. Then came a knock at the door. Amelia frowned. It was barely 7 a.m. Who would be knocking this early? She opened the door. Mrs. Thompson stood there. Her neighbor, a black woman in her 60s, who'd lived on this street for 30 years. She had her arms crossed and a deep frown on her face. "Emmy, baby," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice tight. "We need to talk." "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. Is everything okay?" Mrs. Thompson stepped closer and lowered her voice. "I heard you helped one of those biker thugs last night. One of those outlaw riders." Amelia's stomach dropped. How did she know? "He was having a heart attack, Mrs. Thompson. I had to. Child, those outlaw riders are criminals." Mrs. Thompson cut her off. "Drugs, violence, all kinds of mess. What were you thinking? You got Sophia to think about. He was a human being who needed help," Amelia said, her voice steady but quiet. "That's all I saw." Mrs. Thompson shook her head, disappointment written all over her face. "You're too kind for your own good, Amelia. That kindness is going to get you hurt one day. Mark my words." She turned and walked back to her apartment, leaving Amelia standing in the doorway. Amelia closed the door slowly and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking. Had she made a mistake? She looked at Sophia, still eating her crackers, completely unaware of the conversation that had just happened. Amelia forced herself to breathe. "Finish up, baby. Time to get ready for school." At the dry cleaners, Amelia folded clothes on autopilot. Her mind kept replaying Mrs. Thompson's words. "That kindness is going to get you hurt." Brenda, her co-worker, noticed. She walked over and sat down beside Amelia. "You okay, honey? You look like you didn't sleep?" Amelia hesitated, then told her everything. The convenience store, the biker, the heart attack, using her last $8. Brenda's eyes went wide. "You helped an outlaw rider." "Girl, you're braver than me. Or stupider," Amelia muttered. According to Mrs. Thompson, Brenda reached over and squeezed her hand. "Baby, you did what your heart told you to do. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that." "But what if she's right? What if I brought trouble into my life?" Brenda looked her in the eye. "You saved a man's life, Amelia. That's never the wrong thing to do." Amelia wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. During her break, she pulled out the business card. She stared at the crown with Wings logo, turning it over in her fingers. She pulled out her phone and typed a text message to the number on the card. "Hi, this is Amelia Brooks. Jax gave me this number." She hit send before she could change her mind. Within seconds, her phone rang. She stared at the screen. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. A minute later, she listened to the message. "Amelia, it's Jax. Bear wants to meet you today. Can you come to Riley's Cafe on 3rd Avenue at 3 p.m.? It's important, please." Amelia's heart pounded. Brenda leaned over. "What did they say?" "They want to meet me this afternoon." "Then go," Brenda said. "What's the worst that could happen?" "Free coffee." Amelia tried to smile, but her stomach was in knots. She was off work at 2:00 p.m. She could make it to the cafe by 3. But what would people think? What would Mrs. Thompson say if she found out? What if this really was a mistake? As she left the dry cleaners that afternoon, she noticed something. 2 motorcycles parked across the street. 2 men in vests watching. When she looked at them, they nodded respectfully. Then they rode off. Amelia stood on the sidewalk, her heart racing. What had she walked into? And more importantly, could she walk back out? Amelia took the bus to 3rd Avenue. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. As the bus turned the corner, she saw them. Motorcycles. Dozens of them parked in perfect rows outside Riley's Cafe. Chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her stomach dropped. The bus stopped. Amelia almost stayed in her seat, but something made her stand up and walk toward that cafe. Bikers lined the sidewalk. Big men with tattoos and gray beards. Women, too, arms crossed, standing tall, all wearing vests with patches. They weren't loud. They weren't threatening. They were waiting. As Amelia walked past, each one nodded to her. One older man tipped his cap. Amelia's heart pounded. What did that mean? She reached the door, took a breath, and walked inside. Every booth and table was filled with bikers. The cafe was dead silent. Every single person turned and looked at her. Jax appeared from the back, smiling. "Amelia, thank you for coming. Bear's waiting." As they walked through the cafe, something incredible happened. The bikers stood up, one by one. As she passed, they rose to their feet like a wave moving through the room. Amelia had no idea what it meant, but it felt sacred. Jax led her to a corner booth. Bear sat there looking better than last night. When he saw her, he stood slowly, wincing. "Amelia Brooks, please sit." She slid into the booth. Bear studied her. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. How are you? Doctor said if you hadn't acted fast, I'd be dead. Heart attack? I'm just glad you're okay." Bear leaned forward. "Jax told me everything. You wouldn't take money. You've got a daughter, 2 jobs. You used your last $8 to save my life." Amelia shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't about money." "I know. That's why I wanted to meet you." He pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. A younger Bear stood beside a woman. Between them was a little girl, maybe 7, with bright eyes and a huge smile. "That's my daughter," Bear said quietly. "Her name was Rose." "Was leukemia?" "She was 7. We couldn't afford treatments fast enough. By the time we got the money, it was too late." Amelia's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." Bear's jaw tightened. "After she died, I made a promise. Anyone who shows real kindness, especially when they've got nothing, I help them. It's what Rose would have wanted." Amelia didn't know what to say. Bear looked her in the eye. "Tomorrow morning something's going to happen. Don't be scared. Just trust me." "What do you mean?" Bear smiled. "You'll see." He stood, shook her hand, left cash on the table, and walked out with Jax. Amelia sat alone, surrounded by silent bikers, completely lost. An older biker leaned over. "You did good, miss. Real good. She had no idea what he meant. Back on Amelia's street, the neighborhood buzzed with talk. Mrs. Thompson stood on her porch with Mr. Martinez, a man in his 40s from 3 doors down. "That girl Amelia is mixed up with those bikers now." Mrs. Thompson said, "I told her no good would come of it." Mr. Martinez frowned. "Outlaw riders on our street? We gotta do something." A young mother overheard, "I'm keeping my kids inside tomorrow." Word spread fast. By dinner time, the whole block was on edge. Parents warned their children. Curtains stayed drawn. Doors stayed locked. No one knew what was coming. But everyone was afraid. And Amelia! She rode the bus home with a pit in her stomach, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Tomorrow, I will tell her the answer. Amelia woke to a sound like thunder, deep, rumbling, shaking the windows. Engines. She rushed to the window and looked out. Her street was lined with motorcycles, hundreds of them, chrome-gleaming black vests, bikers standing in perfect formation. "Oh my God," she whispered. Sophia ran in. "Mommy, why are there so many motorcycles?" Amelia had no answer. She threw on clothes and rushed outside with Sophia clinging to her hand. The entire neighborhood had come out, but they weren't curious. They were terrified. Windows slammed shut, doors locked, parents pulled children inside. Mrs. Thompson stood on her porch with her phone. "Yes? Police? There's a gang on our street." Mr. Martinez ran towards Amelia, face red with anger. "Amelia, what did you do? Why are they here?" "You brought a gang to our street. Our kids live here." Other neighbors gathered, voices rising. "What were you thinking?" "I told you," Mrs. Thompson shouted. "I warned you." The crowd pressed closer, angry faces, pointing fingers. Sophia started crying. "Mommy, I'm scared." Amelia pulled her close, hands shaking. "It's okay, baby," but she didn't know if it was. Jax stepped forward, hands raised. "Folks, we're not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here, mister?" Martinez shouted. "We're here to help one of your own. Amelia saved a life 2 nights ago. Now we're here to save hers." Silence. A trailer truck pulled up. Bikers started unloading boxes. Jax turned to the crowd. "My name is Jax. I'm a volunteer with Rose's Legacy, a non-profit that helps struggling families." "Non-profit?" Someone muttered, skeptical. "Bear, the man Amelia saved, is our founder. He started Rose's Legacy after his daughter died of leukemia. We've helped over 3,000 families in 20 years. We raise money, build homes, and pay medical bills." Mr. Martinez's face changed. "Wait, Rose's Legacy? You helped my cousin in Chicago, Miguel Martinez, veteran with PTSD. You paid for his therapy." Jax nodded. A woman gasped. "You paid for my son's heart surgery 2 years ago." Another voice. "You saved my grandmother's house from foreclosure." The atmosphere shifted. Fear turned to understanding. Mrs. Thompson's hand covered her mouth. "Lord, we judged you all wrong." Bear stepped out of the truck, moving slowly. The crowd parted as he walked toward Amelia. He turned to face the neighbors. "I get it," Bear said. "You saw the jackets, the bikes, the tattoos. You got scared. That's human." He pointed to Amelia. But this woman didn't see any of that. She saw a man dying and used her last $8, her daughter's breakfast money, to save my life. Complete silence. She didn't know who I was. I didn't care. She just saw a human being who needed help. That's the world I'm trying to build, where people see people, not stereotypes. Porton Davis, an elderly black man who'd lived here 40 years, stepped forward with wet eyes. "I judged you by your jacket, not your heart." "I was wrong. I'm sorry." He extended his hand. Bear shook it. "We all make mistakes, sir." One by one, neighbors approached, apologizing. "Thanks," shaking hands. Mr. Martinez walked to Amelia. "I'm sorry I yelled. You were braver than all of us." Amelia couldn't speak. Bear turned to her. "You gave me a second chance. Let me give you one. He handed her an envelope, inside a check for $25,000. Amelia stared, unable to process it. For rent, medical bills, whatever you need, Bear said. There was more. A letter on official letterhead. Rose's legacy offers you community outreach coordinator. Salary $52,000 a year. Full benefits, health insurance. Start in 2 weeks. Amelia's knees buckled. She dropped to the ground, sobbing. Sophia knelt beside her. Mommy, why are you crying? Happy tears, baby. The neighbors erupted in applause. Some cried too. Engines revved. A thunderous celebration echoing down the street. Mrs. Thompson pulled Amelia into a hug. Baby, you showed us how to be better. I'm so sorry. Bear knelt beside Amelia, wincing. One more thing. He pulled out a car key. We bought your car from impound. Fully repaired. It's around the corner. Amelia looked up, face streaked with tears. Why? Why all this? Bear's eyes glistened. 20 years ago, my daughter died because we didn't have enough money. I swore I'd never let that happen to another family. You saved my life with your last dollars. Didn't hesitate. Didn't ask for anything. That's who the world needs. That's who I need. I'm nobody special. You're wrong. You're exactly who we've been looking for. Jack stepped forward. There's more. Come. He led her to the trailer. Inside, furniture, a bed for Sophia, groceries, toys, school supplies, clothes. Amelia laughed through tears, disbelief and joy mixing. This is too much. It's not enough, Bear said. But it's a start. Bikers began unloading. The neighbors, terrified an hour ago, stepped forward to help. Mr. Martinez grabbed a box. Where do you want this? Mrs. Thompson directed traffic. Careful with that bed. The young mother who'd locked her kids inside now had them helping carry toys. The entire street came together. Fear and prejudice transformed into community and love. Bear stood beside Amelia. Tomorrow we start planning the community center right here. Community center. Brooks' house named after you. Amelia shook her head, crying. You can't. I can, and I am. Sophia tugged her hand. Mommy, they brought me a bike. Amelia looked at her daughter's face. Pure joy, no fear, and something inside her broke open. For the first time in years, she felt real hope. Thank you, she whispered to Bear. You already thanked me, Bear said. You saw me. Not the vest, not the tattoos, just me. That's all I needed. By noon, Amelia's apartment looked like a completely different place. The old sagging couch was gone, replaced by a sturdy new one with soft cushions. The wobbly kitchen table now. A solid wooden dining set with 4 matching chairs. Sophia's mattress on the floor, a real bed with a frame, fresh sheets and pillows. Bikers moved furniture in, while neighbors helped unpack boxes. Mr. Martinez assembled Sophia's new bed. Mrs. Thompson organized the kitchen cabinets with new plates and glasses. Sophia ran from room to room, eyes wide with wonder. Mommy, look, I have a real desk and books and toys. Amelia stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed. Bear sat down on the new couch and patted the spot beside him. Sit. Let's talk. Amelia sat still in shock. I want to explain the job, Bear said. What we'd need from you. I'll do anything, Amelia said. I just want to help. Bear smiled. We get hundreds of requests every month. Single moms, veterans, families who can't afford medical care. I need someone who understands struggle, who can look someone in the eye and see their heart. That's me. I know. That's why you're hired. He pulled out a folder with blueprints inside. But there's more. I want to open a community center right here in this neighborhood. Amelia's eyes widened as she looked at the drawings. Here? Why not? This is where people need it most. Job training, food bank, after-school programs for kids like Sophia, a medical clinic. That's incredible. Bear pointed to the top of the blueprint. 2 words, Brooks House. We're naming it after you. Amelia shook her head. You can't do that. I didn't do anything special. Bear looked her in the eye. You saved my life with your last $8. That's the definition of special. Tears filled Amelia's eyes again. Your job is to find people who need help, Bear continued. You'll visit families, review applications, connect them with resources. Everything you went through, that pain you felt trying to make ends meet, that's your superpower now because you know exactly what they're going through. Amelia nodded, wiping her eyes. When do I start? 2 weeks. That gives you time to quit your other jobs and settle in. Bear pulled out a benefits packet. Health insurance starts on day 1. Covers everything, including Sophia's asthma medication. Completely. Amelia's breath caught. Completely. No copays, no deductibles. You'll never have to choose between her inhaler and groceries again. She broke down, sobbing. Bear waited patiently until she could breathe again. There's one more thing, he said. He pulled out a vest. Not an outlaw rider's vest, but a volunteer vest for Rose's legacy. The crown with wings embroidered on the back. You're one of us now. Family. Amelia took the vest with shaking hands. She put it on and looked in the mirror hanging on the wall. She barely recognized herself, but in a good way. Your first job, Bear said. Find someone in this neighborhood who needs help. Use those same instincts that saved me. Then we'll help them together. Amelia thought for only a second. Mrs. Jenkins, 3 doors down. She's 80. Can't afford her heart medication. I've seen her cutting pills in half to make them last. Bear smiled. Then let's go. They walked to Mrs. Jenkins's apartment. Amelia, Bear, and Jax. Amelia knocked. Mrs. Jenkins opened the door slowly, surprised to see people on her doorstep. Amelia, what's going on, dear? Mrs. Jenkins, I'd like you to meet some friends. We're here to help. They sat in Mrs. Jenkins's small living room. Bear explained Rose's legacy, while the elderly woman listened, tears forming in her eyes. Ma'am, what do you need most right now? Bear asked. Mrs. Jenkins's voice shook. My heart medication. I can't afford it anymore. I've been cutting the pills in half, but I'm almost out. Bear pulled out his phone and made a call. We'll have your prescription filled and delivered today. Full 3-month supply, no cost to you. Mrs. Jenkins grabbed Amelia's hand. You did this for me? We did this, Amelia said, together. Mrs. Jenkins wept. As they left, Amelia looked back at the elderly woman's grateful face. This is the best job I'll ever have, she said to Bear. I know, Bear replied, because you understand what it means to need help, and now you get to be the person who shows up. They walked back to Amelia's apartment where the celebration continued. Neighbors laughed. Bikers shared stories. Sophia played with her new toys. And for the first time in 3 years, Amelia Brooks didn't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow was going to be okay. Actually, it was going to be better than okay. It was going to be beautiful. 6 months later, everything had changed. But the change didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen smoothly. The day after the bikers came, someone posted a video online. Amelia standing in her street surrounded by 100 outlaw riders' motorcycles. The footage went viral. The comments came fast. She's glorifying gang culture. Outlaw riders are criminals. Don't be fooled. This is staged. No way. This is real. Amelia saw them. Every single one. They hurt. Brenda called her. Ignore them, honey. They don't know the truth. But the negative comments kept coming for weeks. Then something shifted. Families Rose's legacy had helped start sharing their own stories, videos, posts, testimonials. A veteran in Ohio. They gave me housing when I had nothing. A single mother in Pennsylvania. They paid for my daughter's surgery. She's alive because of them. An elderly man in Michigan. They saved my home. The comments changed. I was wrong about bikers. This is what real charity looks like. Faith in humanity restored. Within a month, the Maitorner's Roses legacy was trending. Month 1, Amelia sat at her new desk in the Roses Legacy office. A nameplate in front of her read, Amelia Brooks, Community Outreach Coordinator. She reviewed applications, made phone calls, visited families. Sophia thrived in her new school. Her inhaler sat on the counter, always full, always accessible. No more cutting corners. No more fear. Month 2. A vacant lot in Amelia's neighborhood became a construction site. Brooks' house was rising from the ground. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Amelia stood with a shovel surrounded by bikers and neighbors. Local news cameras filmed everything. The reporter asked, "How does it feel to have a community center named after you?" Amelia smiled. "It's not about me. It's about what happens when people choose kindness over fear." Month 3. Amelia met Marcus, a young black veteran, 32 years old, living in his car. She sat with him in a coffee shop. "Tell me what you need. A place to sleep, a job, a reason to keep going." Within a week, Rose's legacy placed him in transitional housing and enrolled him in a job training program. 3 months later, Marcus worked at a local factory. He had his own apartment, a paycheck. Hope. He came back to thank Amelia, shaking her hand with tears in his eyes. "You gave me a second chance." "No," Amelia said. "You gave yourself a second chance. I just opened the door." Month 4. Brooks' house opened. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew hundreds of people. Amelia and Sophia cut the ribbon together, both laughing. Inside, the building buzzed with life. A job training center, a food bank, an after-school program, a medical clinic offering free checkups. On opening day, 43 people came through the doors seeking help. All 43 left with something they needed. Month 5, testimonials poured in. Rosa, a Latina mother of 3. Rosa's legacy paid for my daughter's surgery. Without them, I would have lost her. Mr. Davis, the elderly man who'd apologized to Bear on Amelia's street. They paid my property taxes. I get to keep my home because of them. A teenage girl, 16, with dreams of college. The after-school program helped me get a scholarship. I'm going to study medicine. Month 6. Amelia now led a team of 5 coordinators, each one a person she'd helped first, now paying it forward. Rose's legacy expanded to 3 neighboring towns. Each location is modeled after Brooks' house. Bear recovered fully. He spent his days visiting the centers, meeting families, and shaking hands. He told Amelia one afternoon, "You know what Rose would say if she could see this?" "What?" She'd say, "Daddy, you did good." Documentary filmmakers came to interview Amelia. They wanted to tell her story. She sat in front of the camera and said something simple. "A year ago, I had $8 and a choice. Help a stranger or feed my daughter breakfast. I chose to help, and that choice saved both of us." The short film premiered online. Within a week, 5 million views. One day, Amelia returned to the convenience store where it all started. She walked inside and asked the manager for permission to place a small plaque on the wall outside. He agreed. The plaque read, "Here, a small act of kindness changed everything. Rose's legacy." Oh. The convenience store clerk, the one who told her to leave Bear alone, saw her and walked over. "I remember you," he said quietly. "I told you not to help him." Amelia nodded. "I was wrong," he said. "I've been following your story, what you built. I'm sorry." Amelia smiled. "We all learn. That's what matters." She walked out of that convenience store for the second time. But this time everything was different. This time, she wasn't alone. She had a family now, a community, a purpose, and it all started with $8 and a choice. 1 year after that night at the convenience store, Brooks' house hosted an anniversary celebration. The building overflowed with people, families who'd been helped, bikers who'd volunteered, neighbors who'd learned to see past their prejudices. Balloons hung from the ceiling. A banner stretched across the wall. 1 year of kindness. Amelia stood at a small podium, looking out at the crowd. Sophia sat in the front row, beaming. Amelia cleared her throat. "A year ago, I spent my last $8 on a stranger. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. He needed help. That's it." The room applauded. I was scared. Amelia continued. "People told me I was making a mistake, that I was bringing trouble into my life. And for a moment, I believed them." She looked at Bear, standing in the back with his arms crossed and a proud smile on his face. "But what I learned is this. Kindness is never a mistake, even when it costs you everything, especially then." More applause. Some people wiped their eyes. After the speech, a young woman approached Amelia. She was white, early 20s, with nervous eyes. "Hi," the woman said. "My name is Emily. I don't know if you remember, but you helped my mom 6 months ago. She had cancer, couldn't afford treatment." Amelia searched her memory. "Mrs. Lawson?" Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's in remission. The doctors said it's a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. It was you. It was Rose's legacy." They hugged tightly, both crying. Mrs. Thompson walked over, now a regular volunteer at Brooks' house. She pulled Amelia aside. "Baby, I need to say something." "What is it, Mrs. Thompson?" "I'm sorry for what I said that morning, for judging you, for judging them." She gestured toward the bikers scattered throughout the room. "You taught this old woman that it's never too late to change." Amelia squeezed her hand. "You were just trying to protect me. I understand. Still, I was wrong, and I'm grateful you didn't listen to me." That evening, after the celebration ended, Amelia walked home. She still walked everywhere. Even though her car was fixed, she liked the quiet, the time to think. As she passed a different convenience store, she saw a young man sitting on the curb, Latino, maybe 22, head in his hands. Amelia stopped. "Hey, you okay?" The young man looked up, eyes red. "My car broke down. I don't have money for a tow. I'm supposed to pick up my son from daycare in 20 minutes. Amelia opened her purse and pulled out $50. She handed it to him. "What?" "No, I can't." "Yes, you can." Amelia said, "Get your car towed. Get your son." The young man stared at the money like it was a miracle. "I don't even know you. You don't have to." Amelia pulled out a Rose's Legacy card and handed it to him. "When you're back on your feet, help someone else. Pass it on. And if you ever need more help, call that number." Tears streamed down his face. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Amelia smiled. "I know you won't." She walked away, her heart full. A year ago, she'd been the one with nothing, the one who needed help. Now she was the one giving it. The cycle continued. Kindness creates more kindness, and somewhere Amelia knew Rose was watching, smiling, proud. Amelia's story started with $8 and a choice. She could have walked away. She could have listened to the fear. But she didn't. She saw a human being who needed help, and she helped. That one choice changed everything. Here's my question for you. Who can you help today? Who needs your $8, your time, your kindness? And who have you judged unfairly? What person have you walked past because of how they looked? Amelia looked past the leather vest and tattoos. She saw a person, not a stereotype. How many times have we judged too quickly? If this story moved you, don't just watch, act. Help someone this week. Leave a comment. Tell me about a time kindness changed your life. If you believe in second chances and communities lifting each other up, hit that like button. Subscribe. Share this story because the more people who see this, the more kindness spreads. Now go be someone's Amelia